try to understand. I have to see you, have to feel you, tell you all the ways I need you, just forever in love. Strange attraction spreads its wings, the berries but the smallest things. You never know how anything will change. Strange attraction spreads its wings, the altars but the smallest things. You never know how anything will fade.
All right, that is The Cure with Strange Attraction. Happy Tuesday, everybody. I'm really excited to be here with you again today. And if you're watching this, I just want to have a quick shout out to yourself, your wonderful self. Aleister Crowley, my favorite thing he ever said was that every man and woman is a star. And I think that summed up his philosophy, that you as a living, breathing, precious human birth, decades into your experience of embodiment on the planet, are so beautiful, are so wonderful, are so magical. You know, there's billions of people and it's easy to feel insignificant, but you are a shimmering face of God. And if you are watching this, thank you for Godding. Anyway, let's get started. Today, I wanted to elaborate a little bit on what it means to live in your medulla oblongata and direct out from there. This is a long topic, and you can approach it from a lot of different angles. I want to show you a picture of the nervous system with a big brain and tendrils of nerves streaming out from there. Boy, there's a lot I want to say about this. So last week, I was talking about lying down, and organizing yourself. And just the first part of that is stopping. What in the Alexander technique we call inhibition. Just noticing what's going on in your body and letting it go and allowing yourself to exist without that for just a moment. Stopping. The second part of the work, directing, is a creative act. Whereas this is in yoga, in the 8 limbs of yoga that we were talking about, the first 2 steps are yama and niyama. And it's the things that you should do and the things that you shouldn't do. Reversed. I don't know. I'm not a scholar on Hindu, but the first 2 steps, yama and niyama, are things that you need to abstain from and rituals that you need to perform constructively. And that's analogous to the first 2 steps of the Alexander technique. You have to stop doing what you're doing, and then you need to start doing something different. And what that something different is organizing your body in a hierarchical fashion. And there's some discussion over what this means and what direction means and what is primary control. These are very complex ideas. But we've learned a lot. And I feel that we can draw from a lot of different sources to answer this question. Once you've stopped completely, what do? You pick a point and you define yourself from that point. I tell my son, when you're trying to draw and you're trying to reproduce an image, like say just my head, for example, you're trying to draw my head, and you notice that there's, a line here on my hairline, and so you mark that on your paper. That point can be anywhere in the world. But the second point you make, whether it's the line on the bottom of my nose, the line on my lips, the line on my chin, the line on my shirt, no matter what other point you make, your proportion in its entirety is established from that point. So it's like if you put one point here, my face could be any size, and you could draw a perfect replica of my face at any size. But once you pick one other point, the proportion for the entire thing is set. These 2 points make a line that everything else has to relate to. So that's one example of direction and how to go about reconstructing yourself. We pick a point at the top of our being and a point at the bottom of our being and establish ourselves in between. My great Alexander grandmother Margine would always start her lesson to me with, okay, bottom of the soles of the feet, top of the head. Feel the soles of your feet, feel the top of your head, and establish where you are in space. Take one moment to see yourself in your entirety. A constructive act of yourself. Allowing yourself to take up as much space as you do. What is direction? What does this mean? So you're laying down on the ground. You bring your attention into your brainstem, the center of your brainstem, the origin of you, from which your sensory mechanism grew out forward and your motor system and your limbs grew down and out from. I'm going to stop and take a little cup of coffee here and try and tell you the whole story. I believe it was Walter Russel who called humans upside down trees. There's a principle in sacred geometry of alternation and inversion. And when life transitioned from plant life and evolved into mammalian life, there was this inversion principle where with the plant it has roots in the ground and it grows and it gets its nutrients and grows up and out into the leaves and the fruits. Humanity is different. We have our origin in our brain, and the energy flows down and out into our limbs and toes and fingers. So we're like this in the same way that we're like cosmic antennas. We're like radio antennas for cosmic energy. And our brains absorb the energy, catch the thought waves and the radio waves, and we transpire it into movement and into matter. This is one vision of what's going on. And let me develop the metaphor with another story from parenting my son. We were watching Star Wars, and Darth Vader's hand gets cut off. And he's like, "What? You can live without your hand?" And I was like, "Oh, yeah, you can live without your arm. You can live without your legs. People get their butts cut off. But if you cut this line, then you die." And it's like an upside down tree. You can pluck leaves. You can cut your fingernails. You can cut off branches. I mean, you can cut off your arm and still live. You can cut off almost all the branches on a tree, and it can still find a way to live. But if you just cut its trunk, cut it right at the ground level, cut your head off, it's all over. Okay. I wanted to go into a whole long tear on Yogananda and Crowley and Alexander being in London together at the wake of the energetic vision of the 19th century, at the end of the 19th century, but I'm going to spare you guys. I'm past 10 minutes. Let's just get to the practice. You're laying down. You've given yourself 5, 10, 20 minutes of letting it stop and transitioning that control and turning off the body. When you turn it back on and when you start to conceive of yourself again, the idea is that you start here. You start in your brain stem and you breathe in cosmic energy. And then as you exhale, it flows down and out. It flows down your spine, out your tail, through your arms, out your wrists and your fingers. It flows down and out through your groin, your legs, your knees, and it flows out your toes. And there's a lot going on in the reorganization of this musculature. In a one-way current from your source down and out. And you think it over and over and over. It's just like breathing. You can just flow out. And remember your magnificence. Remember your magnificence again and again. No shrinking, no shirking. Just a manifestation of a vibrating, radiant state. Thanks for joining us for this week's Coffee with Christopher. I hope you enjoyed that presentation of the radiant state. I love you all so much. Like and subscribe, and I'll see you next week.